The subtle smirk preceded the official testimony as Eric Trump settled into the witness chair with the confident entitlement of someone unaccustomed to true accountability. Overheard lights reflected off his presidential cufflinks, which were gold, ostentatious, and unmistakable. He adjusted his tie, scanned the committee panel with ill-concealed contempt, and allowed his gaze to rest dismissively on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. "Let the sideshow begin," he murmured softly, yet loud enough for the microphone to detect. The House Oversight Committee chamber buzzed with that specific tension, anticipating political theatrics. C-SPAN cameras captured every angle while journalists filled the gallery with smartphones already recording. This was supposed to be routine testimony regarding Trump Organization financial practices, but everyone understood it would be anything but routine. Chairman James Comer called the session to order, announcing, "The committee will now come to order. Mr. Trump, please state your full name for the record." Eric Frederick Trump. His voice resounded with the self-assured arrogance of hereditary wealth. Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization and trustee of the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust. He paused before adding with a slight smile, "and proud son of the 45th and 47th President of the United States." A few Republican committee members signaled their approval while some Democrats shifted in their seats. "Mr. Trump," the chairman continued, "you are here today to answer questions regarding financial statements filed by the Trump Organization between 2017 and 2021, during which period you served as a principal officer. Do you understand the reason for your presence?" "I understand that I am here for yet another political attack." Eric leaned back, spreading his hands wide. "Just another attempt to target my family because Democrats cannot win on policy." "Mr. Trump," Comer began. "It is all right, Mr. Chairman." Eric's tone oozed condescending arrogance. "I'm happy to clarify whatever confusion the ranking member's team has concocted on this occasion, though I must see." He stared directly at Jasmine Crockett. "I am surprised they are allowing lawyers who failed in actual courtrooms to lead this inquiry." The chamber fell silent. Jasmine Crockett did not flinch, having endured harsher words in Texas courthouses, the state capitol, and every arena where powerful men believed insults would intimidate her into silence. She allowed the quiet to expand, letting Eric's statement hang suspended in the air like the tactical mistake it was. Then she smiled, not warmly but clinically. "Mr. Trump," her tone was velvet covering iron, "I tried cases in Bowie County while you were golfing on your father's money. I represented minors within the justice system while you were learning how to inflate asset values. And I secured electoral victories in Texas, one of the most ruthless political landscapes in the country, while you were appointed to manage a family business." She leaned forward slightly. "So when we discuss competence, Mr. Trump, I am perfectly comfortable with the comparison. Shall we proceed?" Eric's sneer faltered for only a second, but the cameras captured it. "Mr. Chairman," Crockett continued smoothly, "I would like to begin my questioning." Comer agreed, recognizing the ranking member. Crockett opened the first binder before her, while behind her a monitor illuminated with a graphic displaying the Eric Trump Foundation logo, with smiling children in the background. "Mr. Trump, before we discuss your role as trustee of your father's corporate holdings, I would like to discuss your charitable work, specifically the Eric Trump Foundation, which you founded in 2007. Are you familiar with this entity?" "Certainly." Eric's confidence returned. "I am extremely proud of those efforts. We raised over $16 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, built them a cutting-edge ICU, and changed lives." "Yes, quite commendable." Crockett's inflection showed no emotion. "You have stated publicly, including in a promotional video and during press interviews, that your charity was able to raise such large sums because you used Trump Organization venues at no cost. Is that correct?" "Yes, absolutely. We were able to keep overhead low because we used our own facilities, which meant more money went to the children." "More money for the children," Crockett repeated the phrase deliberately. "Mr. Trump, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. You are stating under oath that the Eric Trump Foundation used Trump Organization properties, specifically Trump National Golf Club in Westchester, without paying them. Is that correct?" "We paid some logistical costs, naturally, but the venue was free." Free, Crockett allowed the word to linger. Mr. Trump, do you know what perjury is? Eric's lawyer leaned forward, whispering urgently, but Eric dismissed him. I know what perjury is, Congresswoman. I also know what a political stunt looks like. Then let me show you what evidence looks like, Crockett signaled to her aide, and the screen changed. These are IRS filings for the Eric Trump Foundation from 2007 to 2015, which are public records. Let's start with 2007. The document appeared on the monitor with key numbers highlighted. In 2007, your golf tournament cost approximately $50,000. 2008 was similar. 2009, nearly identical. 2010 remained near $50,000. Crockett's vocal tone remained steady and systematic. These are reasonable operating costs for a charitable event, including some equipment, some staff refreshments, standard, wouldn't you agree? Sure. Now, let's look at 2011. A new document on the monitor. The cost jumped to $142,000, almost triple. Can you explain that increase, Mr. Trump? Eric shifted his position slightly. Events grow. More guests, more expenses. More guests, Crockett made a note. Let's proceed to 2012, $59,000. Interesting that costs dropped significantly, but then 2013, $230,000. She allowed that figure to rest. 2014, $242,000, 2015, $322,000. Crockett looked up from her papers. Mr. Trump, over a period of 5 years, your event costs increased over 6 times for the identical golf tournament at the identical venue that you claimed was provided free of charge. And the event grew. I am not finished. Crockett's tone cut sharply. According to these IRS records, the Eric Trump Foundation paid to the Trump Organization, your family's business, over $1.2 million between 2007 and 2015. $1.2 million, Mr. Trump, for a golf course you claimed was free. The audience erupted in whispers while reporters' fingers sped over keypads. Eric Trump's face flushed. That is logistical. Those are event costs, not… Mr. Trump, Crockett pulled another file. I have here a deposition from Ian Gill, former membership and marketing director at Trump National Westchester. Would you like me to read his testimony? Eric's lawyer interjected. Mr. Chairman, I object. This is untested evidence from a judicial proceeding. Mr. Chairman, completely appropriate. Crockett did not wait for a ruling, she read. During the early years, they were not being billed for the club. The tabs would just disappear. And then, quote, Mr. Trump had a fit. He flipped out. He was like, we are donating all this stuff and there is no paper trail, no acknowledgement. And he went ballistic. He said, I do not care if it is my son or whatever. Everyone gets billed. She looked up. Mr. Trump, that is your father, Donald Trump, personally ordering your cancer charity to be billed for the golf course. Does that sound like a venue provided free of charge? That is taken out of context. I also have testimony from Katrina Kalp, who served on your foundation's board during 2010 and 2011. She states, quote, we did need to pay the expenses. The charity had grown so significantly that the Trump Organization could not shoulder all those costs anymore. Did the Trump Organization ever shoulder these costs, Mr. Trump, or was that always a lie? Eric's face had turned from flushed to ashen. The foundation raised $16.3 million. Answer the question, did you mislead donors when you stated the Trump Organization was providing services free of charge, yes or no? No, the costs were… Charity experts state our expense ratio was only 12.3%. Charity experts, Crockett nodded deliberately. Actually, Mr. Trump, charity experts told Forbes magazine that your event costs defied any reasonable cost justification for a single-day golf tournament. They stated the amounts paid to the Trump Organization were incredible and extravagant. She leaned closer. So let me ask again. Were you misleading donors when you told them in promotional videos that you were using Trump facilities free of charge, or were you misleading the IRS when you declared over $1 million in payments to the Trump Organization? The chamber held its breath. I believe there has been a misunderstanding regarding… Mr. Trump, this is quite simple. Either you misled donors about where their charitable contributions were going, or you filed false information with the IRS. Both are illegal. Which is it? Eric's counsel grabbed his forearm, whispering desperately. Eric's jaw tightened. I am refusing to answer that specific question at this time. Interesting. Crockett made a show of noting that down. Let me ask you something else then. Unlike some people here, Mr. Trump, you stated your family actually built something. You specifically stated you provided services to kids with cancer, no less. She pulled out yet another binder. So let's talk about what exactly you provided to those kids with cancer. Because, Mr. Trump, we have not yet discussed where some of that charitable money was diverted. The monitor changed again and a chart appeared showing money flowing between different groups. Over $500,000 in donations to the Eric Trump Foundation, money people believed was destined for St. Jude, was instead rerouted to other charities, organizations that had interesting connections to Trump family interests. Would you like to know what I found? Eric Trump's smirk was entirely gone. Now his hand gripped the edge of the witness desk. Crockett smiled once more, still not amiably, still precisely. Mr. Trump, we are just beginning. The hearing chamber felt tighter now, the walls closer. Eric Trump loosened his tie slightly, a movement so small that only the front row cameras noticed it, but they captured everything. Jasmine Crockett stood up, walking to the projection screen. It was a prosecutor's tactic, dominating the physical space, directing focus. She had done it 100 times in Texas courthouses. The technique worked just as effectively in Congress. Mr. Trump, I want to make sure everyone understands what we are discussing. She pointed to the chart. The Eric Trump Foundation held an annual golf tournament, ostensibly to help St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, a noble cause, pediatric cancer research. Who could object? She turned back to face him. But you didn't just host a fundraiser, did you? You established a business model. Let me show how it worked. The screen shifted. A timeline appeared year by year. 2007 to 2010, your foundation's board was composed mostly of your personal friends, people who knew you from school, from social circles, individuals with no financial ties to the Trump Organization. During these years, as we established, event costs averaged approximately $50,000 annually, reasonable. Eric began to speak. Crockett held up one finger. I am not asking a question yet, Mr. Trump. I am establishing a record. She advanced to the next slide. Then something shifted in 2010. Your board underwent a transformation. By the end of that year, 9 of your 17 board trustees had financial ties to the Trump Organization. They were directors, employees, or business partners. 9 out of 17. The numbers appeared on screen, names blurred but titles distinct. And that is when the expenses skyrocketed. That is when your father, according to Mr. Gill's testimony, had a fit and demanded that everyone gets billed. That is when charitable donations intended for sick children started pouring into Trump Organization coffers at unprecedented rates. That is not $322,000 in 2015 alone, Mr. Trump, for a single golf tournament. The Trump Organization billed your cancer charity in excess of $300,000. She paused. Golf charity experts, and yes, they exist, state that this amount defies justification. Even high-end charity golf tournaments run by major corporations usually cost between $75,000 and $150,000 for venues that actually require payment. She walked back to the committee desk, her heels tapping on the marble floor. But you were not paying market prices, were you? You were paying Trump prices, which means the Trump Organization could charge whatever it wanted to a foundation you controlled, using a board stacked with Trump loyalists to siphon money from a charity that donors believed was helping kids with cancer. Objection! Eric's counsel bolted to his feet. Mr. Chairman, the ranking member is giving testimony, not asking questions. Sustained, Comer said grudgingly. Mrs. Crockett, please phrase your statements as questions. Certainly, Mr. Chairman. She didn't skip a beat. Mr. Trump, did your board structure change in 2010 to include a majority of Trump Organization-connected individuals? The board evolved. Answer yes or no, Mr. Trump. Yes, however. And did the prices charged to your foundation increase drastically in that same period? The event grew. Yes or no? Eric's jaw tightened. Yes. And were you aware at the time these costs increased that your father had personally ordered that the foundation be billed? I don't recall. Crockett pulled out another record. Mr. Trump, in your 2018 sworn testimony to the New York Attorney General's office, you were asked about foundation expenses. You stated, and I quote, "We were using our own facilities. We were absorbing the costs as Trump." That is present tense, Mr. Trump. You personally admitted that the Trump Organization was billing the foundation. She let him dwell on that. So I will ask again. Were you aware that your father ordered your cancer charity to be billed hundreds of thousands of dollars for facilities you publicly claimed were complimentary? The silence stretched. Eric looked at his lawyer, who made a helpless gesture. I was aware of logistical costs, Eric finally said. But the description, did you mislead donors, Mr. Trump? Simple question. When you stated in promotional videos that the Trump Organization was providing services free of charge, when you told donors that more of their money would go to sick youths because of your family's generosity, was that a lie? No, we raised $16.3 million. Mr. Trump, Crockett's tone snapped like a whip. Stop hiding behind that number. No one is disputing that St. Jude received funds. The question is whether you misled donors about where their money was going. The question is whether you used sick children as a mechanism to channel donations to your family business. She moved to the next item. Let's talk about that $500,000 I mentioned. Money that was intended to go to St. Jude. Money that donors believed was funding pediatric cancer research. The monitor displayed a new graph. Multiple organizations, all connected by lines showing money flow. The Eric Trump Foundation made contributions to various other charities. Nothing wrong with that in theory, except these were not random charities, were they, Mr. Trump? She highlighted one connection. This group, which received $87,000 from your foundation in 2014, subsequently held a golf tournament at Trump National Golf Club in Washington, D.C. This one, $45,000, later hosted an event at a Trump venue in Florida. This one, $60,000, another Trump golf links. The pattern was undeniable on screen. Mr. Trump, your foundation donated over $500,000 to groups that then turned around and paid the Trump Organization for events at Trump venues. You weren't just billing your own charity. You were using your charity to funnel money to other groups who would then pay your family business. That is, those were valid charitable contributions to charities that paid your family. Crockett's eyebrows raised. That is a very circular arrangement, Mr. Trump. Some might call it a self-dealing scheme. Some might call it using a charity as a conduit to generate revenue for a commercial enterprise. The New York AG's office investigated. They certainly did, and they found evidence worthy of further investigation. Crockett pulled out another record. In fact, let me read from their 2017 letter to your lawyer. The Attorney General's office is reviewing the findings of the Forbes report concerning the Eric Trump Foundation. That investigation, Mr. Trump, is ongoing. She paused, letting that sink in. But here's my favorite part. She almost smiled. The Donald J. Trump Foundation, your father's charity, the entity that was shut down for illegal conduct, made a contribution to the Eric Trump Foundation in 2011. $100,000. Do you know where that money went, Mr. Trump? Eric's face had turned to ashen again. It went to the Trump Organization. Your father's fraudulent charity donated to your charity, which then paid his business $100,000 in charitable donations intended for sick youths, cycled through 2 different foundations before arriving as revenue for the Trump Organization. The gallery whispered. Chairman Comer didn't even attempt to restore order, briefly. Mr. Trump, you used children with cancer, some of the most vulnerable, most sympathetic recipients imaginable, as a business development tool. You told wealthy donors they were helping to save children's lives, and then you used their compassion to enrich your family. That is not. We built an ICU. The kids received some of the funds. Mr. Trump, after your family took its share. After the Trump Organization billed your charity at incredible rates, after you diverted donations to groups that would turn and pay Trump properties, after your father's illegal foundation used your charity as a laundering mechanism. Crockett collected her papers, aligning them with deliberate precision. You sat there at the beginning of this hearing, Mr. Trump, and mocked my competence. You implied I couldn't succeed in actual courtrooms. But I have spent years in actual courtrooms defending actual people, and I never, not once, had to explain why I stole from a children's cancer charity. She looked directly at him. Can you say the same? Eric Trump slammed his hand on the witness desk. I didn't steal from anybody. This is a persecution. This is exactly what my family has endured for years. Biased Democrats twisting facts. Mr. Trump, Crockett's tone was glacial. Everything I have referenced is from IRS filings, sworn testimony, and public records. These are not my facts. They are your facts. You filed these documents. You gave this testimony. You made these statements. She leaned forward once more. And the numbers do not lie, even if you did. The chamber erupted. Republicans demanded order. Democrats remained silent, allowing the moment to resonate. Eric Trump sat rigid in his chair, the presidential cufflink catching the light, his carefully cultivated persona of business competence crumbling. Presently, Mr. Chairman, Crockett said calmly above the noise, I would like to submit into the record IRS Form 990s for the Eric Trump Foundation, years 2007 through 2016, along with sworn testimony from Ian Gill, Katrina Kalp, and Eric Trump himself from the New York Attorney General investigation. Yeah. So ordered, Comer stated. Crockett sat down, but only for a minute. Mr. Trump, you claimed your family exited all international business when your father became president. Shall we examine that statement next? Eric Trump's look was no longer one of hubris. It was the look of a man realizing he had walked into a trap. And regarding statements you have made publicly, Crockett continued, pulling out another binder, let's discuss what you were doing in February 2017, specifically your trip to the Dominican Republic. The monitor changed again. New images appeared. Because, Mr. Trump, while you were telling the American people you had ceased international business deals, you were actually expanding them, and you lied about that too. The video started playing before Eric Trump could formulate a response. His own face occupied the screen, a Fox News interview from October 2019. The audio was clear, his words distinct. Commander-in-Chief of this country, we got out of all international business, right? Didn't need to do that. Jasmine Crockett pressed pause, stopping Eric's smug look mid-sentence. Mr. Trump, you made this statement on national television. You repeated versions of it in numerous interviews throughout your father's administration. We got out of all international business. Your exact words. Do you stand by this statement? We did. Crockett repeated emotionlessly. Mr. Trump, were you in the Dominican Republic in February of 2017? The question arrived like a chess move. Eric hesitated. I travel often for business. Not my question. Were you specifically in Cap Cana, Dominican Republic, in February 2017, just weeks after your father's inauguration? I might have been. I would need to check my records. Crockett nodded to her aide. The screen changed. A photograph appeared. Eric Trump standing on a golf course, tropical foliage in the background, shaking hands with executives. The date stamp read, February 4th, 2017. Let me refresh your memory. This is you in Cap Cana, Dominican Republic, at a Trump Organization project. 25 days after your father took office. 25 days after you allegedly got out of all international business. Eric adjusted. That was an existing project. An existing project that the Trump Organization continued to develop, promote, and profit from. An existing project that you personally publicized during this visit. She pulled out a published statement. According to officials from the Cap Cana Council, they released a statement following your visit. Would you like me to read it? I do not. Crockett read, regardless, the relationship between Cap Cana and the Trump Organization remains incredibly strong, especially with Eric, who has led the project since its inception. We are excited to be working with the Trump Organization in the prospective stages of the project. She looked up. Prospective stages, Mr. Trump. Not phasing out, not finalizing existing duties. Prospective stages of an international venture that you personally led while claiming you had exited international business. We were not starting new projects. We were maintaining existing ones. International projects for profit while your father was president. Crockett's tone remained even, prosecutorial. Mr. Trump, do you understand how the American people might view that as a distinction without a difference? We were managing. The monitor changed again, another photograph. This one showed a gleaming glass skyscraper, American and Canadian flags visible. Eric Trump stood at a lectern with a ribbon in his hands. February 28, 2017, Mr. Trump, Vancouver, Canada. The grand opening of Trump International Hotel and Tower. That is you cutting the ribbon. That is you at a press conference promoting the property. That is you conducting international business. That was merely 3 days after Cap Cana. In 1 week, Mr. Trump, you conducted Trump Organization business in 2 different foreign nations while telling the American citizenry you had ceased international activities. Crockett brought up a split screen. Eric's Fox News interview on one side, the photographs from Dominican Republic and Vancouver on the other. So I will ask you squarely, when you told Americans that your family exited international business, was that a lie? Eric's lawyer leaned in again, pressing whispers. Eric's face had turned flushed again, but this time it looked more like rage than shame. We fulfilled existing contractual obligations. Mr. Trump, PolitiFact rated your statement false. The Washington Post rated it false. Jordan Libowitz from Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, a nonpartisan government watchdog, termed your assertion the worst lie I have heard in a while. Those are not my descriptions. Those are independent fact-checkers. She allowed that to resonate. And it wasn't just Cap Cana and Vancouver, was it? During 2017, 2018, 2019, you traveled internationally for Trump Organization business. You publicized Trump properties abroad. You brokered deals. You received payments, all while your father sat in the Oval Office. We had a trust. You had a trust. Crockett's tone sharpened. Let's discuss that trust. When your father became president, instead of putting his assets in a blind trust like every modern president preceding him, he put them in a revocable trust. Revocable, Mr. Trump. He could take control back at any moment. And who managed this trust? My brother and I. You and Donald Jr., his sons, running his business, taking his guidance, making decisions that impacted his personal wealth while he was president. She pulled out another record. According to reports from the independent monitor appointed by the court, the Trump Organization generated over $500 million in income in 2017 alone. $500 million streaming into a trust that benefited your father, managed by his sons, while he made decisions as President of the United States. That is not. There were ethical barriers. Ethical barriers, Crockett's eyebrows raised. Mr. Trump, you were CCing your father on emails about corporate decisions. He was visiting Trump properties with foreign leaders. He was promoting Trump hotels from his official Twitter account. Where exactly were these ethical barriers? Eric started to respond, but Crockett was already moving on. Let me show you something else. The monitor changed. A series of headlines appeared. Trump Organization received payments from foreign governments while Trump was president. Saudi Arabia spent hundreds of thousands at Trump properties. China approved trademarks for Ivanka Trump's business the same week she dined with President Xi. Turkey's president personally intervened in a Trump Towers Istanbul matter while Trump was in office. Each headline appeared and disappeared, a damning timeline. And through all of this, Mr. Trump, you were traveling the globe, conducting business, collecting money, expanding projects, all while misleading the American people about ceasing international activities. We But here's what makes this especially rich. Crockett's tone adopted a new sharpness. In that same October 2019 interview where you claimed to have ceased international business, you were attacking someone else. Do you remember whom? Eric's face turned ashen. You were attacking Hunter Biden, you stated, and I have the transcript right here. Why is it that every family goes into politics and enriches themselves? She allowed the hypocrisy to hang in the air. You, the president's son, managing the president's international business empire, collecting cash from foreign governments and foreign entities, you were attacking Hunter Biden for perceived conflicts of interest. That is different. How is it different, Mr. Trump? Explain to me how you running a multi-billion-dollar international business while your father is president is different from Hunter Biden holding a position on a corporate board? Hunter Biden was never in government, Mr. Trump. He never had a White House office, never had security clearance, never had access to classified information. You, conversely, managed an organization that conducted business with foreign entities while your father directed American foreign policy. Crockett pulled out another record. In fact, according to Open Secrets analysis, your father held more than $130 million in foreign assets. While president, assets you managed, assets that benefited from decisions he made, and you had the audacity to attack Hunter Biden. The Trump Organization never... Mr. Trump, you stood before cameras and accused the Biden family of enriching themselves through politics while you were factually doing exactly that. You termed it corruption while you were the one gaining from your father's office. She collected her papers. So let me recap what we have established. You told the American people you had ceased international business. That was untrue. You claimed ethical separation from your father's presidency. That was untrue. You accused others of nepotism while serving as executive VP of your father's company. That was projection. Crockett looked directly at him. And you did all of this while claiming moral superiority, while telling Fox News viewers that Democrats were the corrupt ones, while positioning yourself as somehow different from other political families. I never claimed. You claimed exactly that, Mr. Trump, repeatedly. And it was a lie. Just like the charity claims were a lie, just like your statements about international business were a lie. She paused, then added, nearly conversationally, you know what is interesting about liars, Mr. Trump? They usually get caught when someone checks their math, and your math doesn't work. This is a biased... These are fact-checkers, Mr. Trump, nonpartisan organizations, news publications across the political spectrum. They all reached the same conclusion. You lied. The monitor changed one more time. A financial document appeared. But we are not finished reviewing your lies, Mr. Trump, because the most significant ones, the ones that involved actual fraud, not just public deception, those were the ones you perpetrated as a trustee, the ones involving your father's financial statements. Crockett pulled out a thick binder. Those lies didn't just deceive the public, they swindled banks, they breached fiduciary duty, and they are why you are really here today. She opened the binder, revealing highlighted emails, financial statements, and valuations. Mr. Trump, between 2017 and 2021, you signed annual certifications as trustee of the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust. These certifications attested that financial statements presented to Deutsche Bank and other lenders were accurate and prepared in accordance with accounting standards. Do you recall signing these documents? Eric's counsel leaned forward again. This time he spoke. Mr. Chairman, we are moving into territory that is subject to ongoing litigation. The litigation ended in a verdict, Counselor, Crockett cut in. Judge Arthur Engeron ruled on September 26, 2023, that the defendants, including Eric Trump, were liable for fraud. This is not alleged anymore. It is adjudicated. She turned back to Eric. So I will ask again. Do you recall signing these trustee certifications? Eric's jaw worked. Eventually, yes. Good. Let's discuss what you certified as accurate, starting with a property called Seven Springs. The image on the monitor changed to an aerial photograph of a large manor. This is Seven Springs, a 213-acre estate in Westchester County, New York. Lovely property, valuable property. The question is, how valuable? She pulled up an email. Mr. Trump, this is an email from you to Jeff McConney, the Trump Organization Controller, dated March 15, 2013. In it, you provide information about Seven Springs for, quote, Dad's personal financial statement. Do you recall this email? I emailed Jeff often. Yes or no, Mr. Trump? Do you recall providing information about Seven Springs for your father's financial statements? A long hesitation. Yes. And in your sworn testimony to the New York Attorney General, you testified that you worked with Mr. McConney nearly every day, correct? Correct. And Jeff McConney testified under oath at trial that you directed him to make specific decisions that resulted in the inflated valuations of Trump properties. Are you aware of his testimony? I am aware he testified, yes. Are you aware that he specifically mentioned Seven Springs? Eric's looked clouded. I am aware. So let's look at the numbers. The monitor split. On one side, a professional valuation report. On the other, a Trump Organization financial statement. In 2015, the Trump Organization hired Cushman & Wakefield, a reputable real estate valuation firm, to assess the development potential of Seven Springs. The appraiser, David McCardle, concluded that the property could be developed into residential plots worth approximately $45 million. Do you see that amount, Mr. Trump? I see it. Now look at the other side of the monitor. These are your father's statements of financial condition from 2013 to 2018, the same years you were providing information to Jeff McConney, the same years you were working with him nearly every day. What value is listed for Seven Springs? Eric did not answer. I will read it for you. Seven Springs value, $100.1 million, $100.1 million, Mr. Trump. The valuation stated $45 million. Your father's financial statement stated $101 million. That is a difference of $56 million. She allowed that figure to linger. Now, Mr. Trump, here is what makes this especially interesting. You were copied on the email containing that $45 million valuation. The New York Attorney General's office presented that email as evidence. You received it, you read it. And then your father's financial statements continued to list Seven Springs at more than double that amount. I did not prepare the financial statements, but you provided the data used in them, and you signed the certifications as trustee, stating they were accurate. You had a fiduciary duty, Mr. Trump. That is a legal obligation. It means you were required to ensure the information was truthful. Crockett pulled another record. Let's look at another property, the Trump National Doral Golf Resort in Miami. You have been associated with this property for years, correct? I have worked on Doral, yes. You have called it one of your favorite properties. You have personally overseen renovations. Fair to say you know this property intimately? I know it well. Then you knew when its value was being falsified on your father's financial statements. The monitor changed again. More valuations, more financial statements, more massive discrepancies. Doral was valued by the Trump Organization at hundreds of millions over what independent appraisals indicated, and you provided information about Doral to Jeff McConney for those financial statements. Your emails are in the record, Mr. Trump. The proof is undeniable. I trusted the accounting department. You trusted them to inflate values. Crockett's voice was sharp. Or you directed them to inflate values. I never directed. Jeff McConney testified that you did, under oath at trial. He stated you directed him to make specific decisions that resulted in the inflated valuations. Are you calling him a liar? I think his memory was corroborated by documentary evidence, Mr. Trump. Your emails, your phone calls, the paper trail does not lie. She brought up one final comparison. Let's discuss the impact of this fraud. Because that is what Judge Engoron termed it, fraud. Not a mistake, not aggressive valuation, fraud. The monitor displayed a calculation based on the fraudulently inflated financial statements that you helped create and that you certified as trustee. The Trump Organization obtained loans at favorable rates from Deutsche Bank. An expert witness testified that the Trump organization saved approximately $168 million in interest payments because of these fraudulent statements. She looked directly at Eric. $168 million, Mr. Trump. That is not a rounding error. That is not a difference of opinion about valuation methodology. That is systematic fraud that saved your family business tens of millions of dollars at the expense of the banks who trusted those financial statements. We repaid every loan. That is not the point. For the first time, Crockett's tone rose. The point is that you lied to get better terms. You fraudulently inflated asset values to deceive banks into giving you lower interest rates. You certified those statements as a trustee, swearing they were accurate when you knew they were not. She took a breath, composing herself. And then, Mr. Trump, when you were deposed about this, you lied again. You stated you were not involved in the financial statements. You stated you didn't know what data was being used. You stated you just signed what the accountants put in front of you. I relied on professionals. Your emails prove that is false. Crockett's tone was cold again. You were not a passive signatory. You were an active participant. You supplied the inflated numbers. You directed decisions. You knew exactly what was happening. She collected the documents, the emails, the valuations, stacking them with precision. You want to know the difference between a mistake and fraud, Mr. Trump? Mistakes are random. They go up and down. They average out. But every single one of your valuation errors went in the same direction, up. Every single discrepancy inflated your father's net worth. Every single number made him appear richer than he was. That is fraud, Mr. Trump, and you participated in it. You benefited from it. You certified it. And when you were caught, you lied about it. The chamber was silent now. Even the Republicans who had been complaining earlier seemed subdued by the weight of evidence. But here's what really disturbs me, Mr. Trump. Crockett's tone was almost conversational now, which somehow made it more devastating. You didn't just commit this fraud. You committed it while positioning yourself as morally superior to your critics. You attacked Democrats. You attacked investigators. You attacked anyone who questioned your family's ethics. She pulled out one final record. June 2017, Mr. Trump. Sean Hannity's program on Fox News. You were asked about the Russia investigation, about criticism of your father's administration. Do you remember what you stated? Eric's face was ashen now. Crockett read from the transcript. I've never seen hatred like this. To me, they're not even people. It's so sad. Morality is just gone. Morals have flown out the window. She looked up. You stated Democrats were not even people. You stated morals had flown out the window. You stated this, Mr. Trump, while your charity was billing sick kids, while you were lying about international business, while you were certifying fraudulent financial statements. She closed the binder with finality. So I will ask you one more time. Who exactly lacks morals, Mr. Trump? Eric Trump sat motionless, his knuckles white where they gripped the edge of the witness desk. The presidential cufflinks no longer gleamed. They seemed gaudy now, almost pathetic, like wearing a crown to your own trial. Jasmine Crockett remained standing, her posture relaxed but her gaze laser-focused. She had prosecuted drug dealers with more dignity than this man. She had defended juveniles with more integrity. And now she was going to make sure everyone watching understood exactly who Eric Trump was. Let me show you something, Mr. Trump. She nodded to her assistant. The monitor flickered to life with a video compilation. This is you, in your own words, over the last 8 years. The first clip played, Eric Trump on Fox News, October 2019. Why is it that every family goes into politics and enriches themselves? I mean, it's pretty amazing. The second clip, Eric on another Fox interview, August 2019. The difference between us and Hunter is when my father became commander-in-chief of this country, we got out of all international business, right? Third clip, that June 2017 Hannity appearance. To me, they're not even people. It's so sad. Morality is just gone. Morals have flown out the window. Fourth clip, a 2020 Diao interview. We have clean lives. We've been clean. We don't do anything wrong. The compilation ended Crockett allowed the silence to stretch. Clean lives. You don't do anything wrong. Every family enriches themselves. Democrats are not even people. Morals have flown out the window. She repeated each phrase slowly, precisely. These are your words, Mr. Trump, not mine, yours. She walked toward the witness stand. So let's examine the morality of Eric Trump. Let's look at what you have actually done versus what you have accused others of doing. The screen changed. A side-by-side comparison appeared. Left side, Hunter Biden. Never held a government position, served on a corporate board in Ukraine. No evidence he influenced his father's policy decisions. Right side, Eric Trump, ran a multi-billion-dollar business while father was president, conducted international deals, signed financial certifications affecting policy-relevant lending practices. She allowed that visual to sit. Mr. Trump, you attacked Hunter Biden for perceived conflicts of interest while you were literally managing your father's business empire from the White House era. You called that corruption. What do you call what you did? That is not, we had separation. You had no separation. You had a revocable trust that your father could reclaim at any moment. You had regular communication about business decisions. You had your father promoting Trump properties from his official accounts. Where exactly was the separation? The screen changed again, more comparisons. Hunter Biden at his worst alleged behavior, trading on his father's name for corporate positions. Eric Trump's documented behavior, using sick children to enrich family business, lying about international operations, certifying fraudulent financial statements. Crockett's tone hardened. So when you stated families go into politics to enrich themselves, Mr. Trump, you were not describing Hunter Biden. You were describing yourself. Every accusation you made was a confession of your own conduct. You literally just testified about enriching your family through your father's presidency. You have spent the last 2 hours admitting to charitable fraud, financial fraud, and systematic deception, and you had the audacity, the sheer audacity, to call Democrats immoral. Pulled another record. Let's discuss your claim that Democrats are not even people, because I find that statement particularly revealing. Crockett's tone adopted a different quality, not anger, but something colder, more personal. I am a Democrat, Mr. Trump. I am also a person who spent years as a public defender in Bowie County, Texas. Do you know what public defenders do? Eric did not answer. We defend people who cannot afford lawyers, poor people, mostly black and brown people. People the system has already decided are guilty. We stand between them and a criminal justice system that would happily grind them up. We work for almost nothing with impossible caseloads because someone has to believe everyone deserves representation. She took a step closer. I defended juveniles, Mr. Trump, children, kids who made mistakes, kids who grew up in poverty, kids who never had your advantages, private schools, trust funds, family businesses handed to them. I worked to keep them out of jail, to give them second chances, to protect their futures. Her voice did not rise, but the intensity grew. That is what this Democrat did. What did you do, Mr. Trump? You ran a charity that was supposed to help kids with cancer, and you used it to pay your family's business. You took donations meant for the sickest children imaginable and converted them into Trump organization revenue. That is not fair. Fair? Crockett's eyebrows raised. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about the children I defended. Kids who stole because they were hungry. Kids who fought because they were protecting siblings. Kids who sold drugs because it was the only economy in their neighborhood. The system wanted to lock them away, label them criminals, destroy their lives. She paused. And then there is you. You committed actual fraud, not poverty-driven crime, not survival-driven mistakes, white-collar fraud. You stole from charity. You lied to banks. You certified false documents. And when you were caught, what happened? Did you go to jail? Did you lose your freedom? Did your life get destroyed? Eric's jaw clenched. No, you lost a civil case. You will pay a fine that is a fraction of what you stole. You will continue living in luxury. You will keep your properties, your wealth, your status. The worst consequence you will face is having to sit through this hearing. Crockett's tone dropped even lower. So don't you dare sit there and call Democrats immoral. Don't you dare call us not even people, when I have spent my career defending the most vulnerable people in our society, while you have spent yours exploiting the most vulnerable for profit. The gallery was utterly silent. Several Democrats on the committee were nodding. Even some Republicans looked uncomfortable. You know what the real difference is between Democrats and people like you, Mr. Trump? Crockett did not wait for an answer. We believe in accountability. We believe that wealth does not buy immunity from consequences. We believe that everyone, including presidents' sons, including billionaires, including people with gold cufflinks, should follow the same rules. She returned to her seat but remained standing. Let's talk about one more statement you made in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. You claimed you went to the CDC and saw that the number of deaths from COVID-19 amounted to almost nothing. Do you stand by that statement? I was referencing the CDC reported over 1 million American deaths from COVID-19, 1 million people. Were those lives almost nothing to you? That is taking my words out of context. PolitiFact investigated your claim. They rated it false. CNN fact-checked it. False. Every reputable fact-checker examined your statement and concluded you were lying. Were they all wrong? I was making a broader point. You were minimizing a pandemic that killed over 1 million Americans. You were spreading misinformation during a public health crisis, and you did it confidently, authoritatively, as if you had inside knowledge. Crockett brought up yet another record. But here is the thing about your lies, Mr. Trump. You tell them with such conviction. You go on national television and you lie about charity, about business, about COVID, about your opponents, and you do it with complete confidence. Why is that? I do not lie. You have lied repeatedly in this hearing alone. You lied about the charity being free. You lied about ending international business. You lied about your involvement in the financial statements. I have caught you in at least a dozen lies in the last 2 hours. She shook her head. And that is the pattern, isn't it? You lie, you get caught, you deflect, you attack your accusers, you claim persecution. It is the same playbook every time. The screen changed one final time. A simple list appeared. Eric Trump's record, Eric Trump Foundation, 1.2 million paid to Trump Organization, despite claiming free. International business continued, despite claiming to have stopped. Financial fraud. Certified false statements saved $168 million through fraud. Hunter Biden attacks accused others of nepotism while running father's business. Not even people comments dehumanized political opponents. COVID misinformation minimized pandemic deaths. Charity redirection, 500,000 sent to Trump-connected organizations. This is your record, Mr. Trump. Not allegations, not accusations, your documented record. Every item on this list is supported by evidence in the public record. Crockett gestured to the screen. So when you talk about morality, when you talk about corruption, when you talk about who does and does not have clean hands, remember this list. Remember what you have actually done. She picked up one more binder. Ah, the last one. Mr. Trump, I want to go back to something you said earlier in this hearing. You said your family actually built something. You contrasted yourselves with people who just talk. You suggested that your work, your business acumen, your deals represent real accomplishment. Eric's expression was wary now. So let me ask you, what exactly did you build? The Trump Organization is one of the most successful. You inherited a business from your father. He inherited it from his father. Your grandfather built it. Your father expanded it. What did you build? You have overseen properties purchased with loans obtained through fraudulent financial statements. You have managed businesses that enriched themselves through your father's presidency. You have run charities that paid your family's company. Crockett leaned forward. You didn't build anything, Mr. Trump. You inherited everything. And then you use that inheritance to commit fraud, to enrich yourself further, and to attack people who actually built their careers through merit. That is not true. It is demonstrably true. Show me one thing, one single thing you built from scratch, without your father's money, without your family's name, without fraud. Show me one accomplishment that is actually yours. The silence was deafening. You can't, because it doesn't exist. Your entire life is built on inherited wealth and systematic fraud, and yet you have the nerve to question other people's competence, to attack their morality, to claim superiority. Crockett gathered her binders, stacking them precisely. Here is what I have built, Mr. Trump. I built a law career by passing the bar exam in 3 states. I built a criminal defense practice by winning cases. I built a political career by winning elections in a competitive state. I built credibility by telling the truth and backing it up with evidence. She looked directly at him. Everything I have, I earned. Can you say the same? Eric Trump's face had cycled through red, pale, and back to red. His attorney whispered urgently. Several Republican committee members looked like they wanted to object but couldn't figure out what to object to. Everything Crockett was saying was supported by evidence already in the record. Mr. Chairman, Crockett said, I want to make one final point before I conclude my questioning. Chairman Comer nodded. He looked like he had aged 5 years in the past 2 hours. Throughout this hearing, Mr. Trump has attempted to frame these questions as a political witch hunt, as partisan persecution, as Democrats going after his family unfairly. She paused. But everything, and I mean everything, I have presented today comes from Republican-led investigations, nonpartisan fact-checkers, independent journalists, and judicial findings, the New York fraud case brought by the Attorney General but decided by a judge based on evidence, the charity scandal uncovered by Forbes magazine, the international business lies fact-checked by organizations across the political spectrum. She looked around the room. This is not partisan, Mr. Trump. This is accountability. And the reason it feels like persecution to you is because you have never been held accountable before. You have never had to answer for your actions. You have never faced real consequences for your fraud, your lies, your exploitation. Her voice grew stronger. But today you are answering. Today you are facing questions you cannot deflect. Today the American people are seeing who you really are. Not the businessman you pretend to be on TV, but the fraudster documented in court records. She paused one more time. And Mr. Trump, you are not a victim. You are not being persecuted. You are being investigated for actual crimes. There is a difference. Eric started to respond, but Crockett raised her hand. I am not done, because I want everyone watching this to understand something. This hearing is not just about Eric Trump. It is about whether we still believe in equal justice. It is about whether rich, connected people face the same accountability as everyone else. It is about whether fraud is fraud or whether it becomes aggressive business practices when committed by the wealthy. She looked directly into the camera. The children I defended in Texas, they couldn't lie to judges and walk away. They couldn't commit fraud and pay a fine. They couldn't exploit charity and keep their freedom. They were held accountable immediately and harshly. But Eric Trump, she gestured toward him, he commits fraud, lies to the public, exploits sick children for profit, and he is still sitting here in an expensive suit complaining about persecution. That is not equal justice. That is not accountability. That is privilege protecting power. She closed her final binder. So yes, Mr. Trump, I have been aggressive in questioning you today. I have been thorough. I have been relentless. Because that is my job. That is what accountability looks like. And if you don't like it, if it feels unfair to you, consider how the people you have defrauded felt. Consider how the donors to your charity felt. Consider how the banks you lied to felt. Consider for once in your life someone other than yourself. The room erupted, not in chaos, but in a wave of reaction that could not be contained. Democrats applauded. Republicans shouted objections. The gallery buzzed with conversation. Chairman Comer's gavel came down repeatedly. Eric Trump sat rigid, his face unreadable, his hand still gripping the table edge. Jasmine Crockett sat down calmly, organizing her papers as if she had just finished a routine examination rather than delivered a systematic evisceration of a man's character, credibility, and claims to moral authority. "Mr. Chairman," she said into the din, "I have no further questions at this time, but I do have a recommendation for the committee's consideration." The room gradually quieted. "Based on the testimony and evidence presented today, I recommend the following actions."